Hello and welcome back to the Little Craft House. Today we're going to be creating a stone-like effect using polymer clay. Now I like to call it stone-like because that's what I think it looks like. However, some people do call it the watercolour technique as well. So we're going to start today with some black and white clay as well as some translucent. So I'm just going to start by cutting off my pieces of white and black and getting them conditioned up and nicely rolled out. Now the brands I'm choosing to use today are both Sculpey Souffle for the black and white, and the translucent I'm using is from Cernit. So to condition my clay, I alternate between using my hand roller, the acrylic roller like I'm doing at the moment, and I also will pop it through my pasta machine as well, which will give it a nice consistent thickness. So I always start by running it through on the thickest setting first. I'll do that a couple of times, and then in a moment I'm going to pop them both the colours through on the second thinnest setting. So I wouldn't normally do earrings at such a thin setting, however we're going to be doing a lot of layering today, so they do need to be quite thin. Now I'm just going to trim my clay down a little bit just so that it has nice even edges and that I can layer the two pieces on top of each other without too much overhang. And just a quick little roll just to seal the two pieces together nicely. Because we're working with alcohol ink today, I like to place my clay onto a piece of baking paper. This will just catch any spills or drips and hopefully keep my tile clean. I'm choosing to work with the Couture Creations brand of alcohol inks today, and I've chosen these three colours. Now there's lots of different brands of alcohol inks out there. I like this range because I find the colours aren't quite as intense as others, and that just works really well for this technique. I've also got some blending solution here which I'm going to pop down in a minute. And if you've got a little air puffer or blower, this comes in really handy, but if not, you can use a straw. That works just as well. Okay, so blending solution. Let's pop a layer of that down onto the clay, and I'm just going to use my finger to even it out and just give a nice coverage over that top layer of clay. By using the blending solution, it means that it's going to give something for the alcohol inks to move and bloom in. With the exception of this pink one here that I'm using, because that is a stays in place, so it doesn't move. But you can see here with the black that it's just able to spread out and move. So the stays in place does exactly that, and it's not going to move freely, so I'm going to have to make sure I do blow that one to move it around. But you can see the silver and black do slightly move by themselves, and it's easier with this puffer to just blow them and get it to blend together. I'm just going to add some more drops into the spacious areas here and try and reveal a bit more of that pink. The pink's obviously settling down, sinking, so it's a bit harder to see it, but I do want to still be able to have a little bit of that colour show through. So I'll just have a little play and keep pushing the colours around for a few minutes until I'm happy with how it's all settled. Okay, so I've left it for about half an hour just to dry, let the inks dry out. And that pink colour has sunk down even more, but it's okay because I'm sure it will be visible once we do our next couple of steps. So anyway, I'm going to pull it off the baking paper, and I have rolled out a piece of translucent. So this was the Cernit translucent, and I've done it as thin as I possibly can. It does have a couple of little rips in it, but that's okay. And we're just going to place it over the top of our other pieces of clay. And so I'll just smooth it out a little bit and just chop off all these little extra overhang bits. Now it is important to make sure that your ink is dry before you put this top layer on, because otherwise when you're rolling it out, the wet ink can squeeze out and it gets all messy and smudgy. So try and leave it as long as you can, or until that layer of ink is dry before you put that top coat on. Now I'm getting slight little bubbles here as I'm moving it, so I'm just going to do it really carefully and really slowly. I just want to create a nice bond between those layers and just make sure that they're nicely stuck together. And now the next step is quite a fun one. We're now just going to rip and tear this slab apart. I've got it out of shot here so you can't quite see, but I'm just pulling bits off and I'm just randomly placing it onto the tile, layering it over each other. So I want the ripped pieces to be visible, so any of those straight edges from around the edge, I just try and cover them by a nice ripped piece. Now you can sort of, we'll zoom in a bit, you can kind of work in a bit of a circle going around, and just, yeah, keep working at it until you've used up all of that original slab. I like to be a little bit intentional with the colour placements as well. So when I'm ripping from a section that has a lot of a particular colour, I try not to constantly overlap those colours so that you get a mix of all the colours going around. Right, so once all the clay has been placed down, we're going to give it a gentle roll over with the acrylic roller. Now, I did notice that doing this, it started to lift up that top layer of translucent, and it happened right in the middle there, which is really annoying. So maybe don't roll directly straight onto the clay. We're going to put the piece of baking paper back over the top, and this will help put a barrier there to stop it from lifting. So it's a much better idea because we don't want holes in our clay. But anyway, yes, just giving it a nice roll over, making it all the one level. And when we do this, you'll notice that those black and white lines now become really prominent, which gives it a really nice, I suppose, crackle effect, which is where it sort of gets that stone look from. And I'm just going to use my flexi blade to now scrape this up off of the tile. It is quite well stuck because we've just done those few rolls over the top. There we go, released it. Now if you look at the back, it has those lines visible. So if this was thicker, we could leave it as is if you wanted to, but I'm going to actually back it onto another piece of clay so that way we just have a nice even backing. And it also means that it's back to sort of a thickness that I like to use for my earrings. So this is just a scrap piece of clay, but I think the colour really matches well. So it's going to make a really nice backing. It's kind of like a blue-grey with a bit of granite through it. So yeah, we'll just place that on top there and smooth it out. And might just give it another roll just to make sure that it is bonded to that backing piece nicely. Now I'm noticing that there are still a few little smudgy marks, even though I had waited for my inks to dry. So I'm just using an alcohol wipe here, and that will just take off those smudged bits of alcohol ink. It just works quite nicely to clean up those bits. If you didn't have an alcohol wipe, just a little bit of isopropyl and maybe a cotton tip or a little sponge will help to remove that. And I'm just going to cut away all those little extra bits just to neaten it up and make it a bit clearer for where I'm working with as we cut out our pieces. Now, if you've watched my videos before, you know that I really struggle with what shapes I'm going to cut out. It's a huge decision and I always take ages to decide. But I've got a new favourite shape at the moment, and if you saw my tutorial the other week with hoops, loops and links, you'll see that I did this shape and I'm a little bit obsessed with it. I've done it quite a few times since. So I'm just using my rounded square cutter and I'm using a little oval cutter just to make it have sort of like a little hollow at the top. Now, one of the things that also always stumps me is the placement of where I'm going to cut out, because I want these to be obviously a matching pair, but they're not going to be identical. So I've got to choose bits within the slab that they will still match without being completely identical, because that's just not going to happen. But yeah, just so that they look like they are a pair. Yeah, see, I'm struggling with the circle too. I've just decided to go for another one of these shapes because it is my favourite and I will probably end up keeping a pair for myself. And I decided that I will use the circle, but what I'm going to do is chop it in half afterwards so that I've got it as two semicircles. And I've always got a couple of little toppers, topper cutters here, because I keep a whole bunch of those to the side for when I just need a top on something. All right, the peel time. This is actually really super soft today, this slab. I think it's a mixture of the temperature, the alcohol that's on it, and the fact that I've just been handling it a lot. So I'm just going to use my flexi blade again to release all these pieces off of the tile. They are squishing a little bit just because, yeah, it is a bit sticky and soft. So just go gentle and just need to reshape them slightly. Pop them in the oven and get them all baked up. Right, so they are out the oven now and they look really good. That layer of translucent has done its thing and it's gone kind of clear on the tops of them. So you can actually see all that beautiful colour has come through. Now, I quite like them in this matte stage, but I think I might top them with resin, and I think that should bring out like those silvers and, yeah, the colouring quite nicely. So I might leave one pair of these ones as is so we can compare them afterwards, and then I might go and dome the rest with resin on the top. Okay, so little time lapse of me resin coating them here. If you guys are interested in knowing all about doming with resin on top, I'll link my tutorial about that in the description box of this video. Okay, so as you can see, they are looking really, really good. And there is a couple of pieces there that I've done in a different colorway as well. I'll try and show you some of those at the end. Right, so they've all cured up now. The resin's nice and hard. They look absolutely beautiful. It's really hard to kind of show you guys with the filming here, but it's kind of made it go a bit more 3D, like you can sort of see depth in the colorings with, I suppose it's the effect from the translucent and the alcohol ink. But yeah, it's looking amazing and I'm so happy with the way that they've turned out. Now, unfortunately, I did notice that one of these beautiful pairs here ended up with a dog hair blowing into it. I had covered them after I resined them, but unfortunately, it still somehow managed to land into the resin. So I think I'll be keeping that pair for myself. Not such an issue. Right, so here is a little bit of a comparison between a pair that is resined and a pair that's not resined. Now, the unresined pair have a little bit more pink in them, but just wanted to show you how beautiful and shiny they are with that resin on. So when it comes to finishing them off, I've made sure that I've left them now. It's probably been at least a week, probably closer to 2 weeks. I'm just giving them a sand around the edge just to neaten up any of the little bits from where the cutters left marks on the edge. Just make them nice and smooth. And then now I'm going to assemble them. So I'm only going to assemble this pair at the moment. This is my pair, the dog hair pair. Just going to assemble these ones at the moment. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do with the others yet. I've got a couple of ideas, but I don't want to drill the holes into them yet until I'm 100% sure that's what I want. So anyway, back to this pair. I'm going to do this little trick I like to do with the jump rings. So when I've got a hollow shape like this, I like to do a bit of a multiple jump ring thing on them. You'll see what I mean in a minute. I quite like this look. So because they're going to be my ones, I thought I would do this for those, and it means that I don't have to drill a hole. But so basically I'm just threading through 3 of the 10mm jump rings, and then each one of those jump rings goes through a smaller 6mm jump ring, and that kind of holds them all together. Then once I've done that, I'm going to add another little 6mm jump ring. I really like this really rustic chain sort of effect that it gives it. And then I'm going to add a little ball stud top on there. Whoops, nearly sent that flying. And close up that jump ring. There we go. So that brings us to the end of this tutorial. So this is the pair that I've made for me. I've just backed it on the card so you can see it properly. But yeah, just absolutely loving this effect. And as promised, I would show you the same effect but in a different colorway. So I did this one as a reel over on Instagram, and this one's with the more neutral colors, so some coppers and golds, and it wasn't a brown, I can't quite remember, a peach was in there as well. But yeah, these ones look amazing paired with all of these bamboo wood pieces, and we sell all these connectors and all the jewelry findings along with the polymer clay and alcohol inks and resin over in our store. So in case you're wondering, I will add a shop link in the comments, and I will also link to a previous tutorial that I did which was very similar, and that also has that some more neutral toned colorings as well. And so thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you'd like to see more tutorials like this in future, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks guys, I'll see you next time. Bye.